A week ago, Donald Tusk argued that the Prime Minister was not responsible for lowering fuel prices and that they are now so high because oil around the world has become more expensive. Oil prices are 20–30% higher. I don't take responsibility for gasoline prices because it's not the Prime Minister's decision. We checked, and the price of oil when Tusk promised gasoline at $5.19 was higher than it is today. That is, once again, the head of government is manipulating. So today we wanted to ask about cheap fuel. Agnieszka Rucinska, who was leading the conference, did not allow us to ask the question, and the Prime Minister ran away. We checked when you promised fuel at $5.19. A barrel of oil cost $120. Today it costs $90. Please check better. Check. Or just recall the Prime Minister and his associates should have kept these promises to themselves. I have a very concrete solution which could make today gasoline at 5 zloty. And there are no miracles. If you were Prime Minister, how much would fuel be? At 5.19? Just one simple decision would be enough to make fuel in Poland cost not over 6 zloty, but 5 zloty. This is another lie of Donald Tusk. There was supposed to be fuel at 5.19. He was supposed to do it almost at the snap of his fingers. And as it is, the Poles see it at the gas station. Donald Tusk lies even when he sleeps. But when Tusk is reminded of his own promises, he gets furious. Please, next caller. Donald Tusk is running away from answering. He is running away from the truth about his rule. When he is asked inconvenient questions, he either doesn't answer them or he is not in Parliament when we try to ask him. Neither Donald Tusk nor his main ministers come. Drivers on cheap fuel have nothing to look forward to. Unfortunately, there is no prospect of a quick reduction. Unfortunately, events in the Near East and east of the San River will put an additional upward pressure on prices, and this means that there will be no quick reductions at fuel stations. But the government could, if it wanted to, make a decision to lower prices. One that it can do on its own is to reduce excise duties on fuel, and the other decision is to reduce VAT. It's just that lowering the VAT rate involves notification to the European Commission and generally the approval of the European Commission for such an action. I sincerely doubt that the European Commission today would agree to any such action. The change in Orlen's chief executive officer was supposed to affect prices. Fuel was supposed to be cheaper. Cheaper it is not. It already exceeds 7 zloty per litre. And on top of that, the share price of the company, after the announcement of the new president, fell. Such a reaction of such a large drop shows that they forecast very badly for Orlen's development. Lower demand and therefore lower revenues, i.e. a lower scale of orders of needed fuels from suppliers. And here this will also probably lead to an increase in the price of fuel purchased by Orlen. And this will be felt by everyone paying more and more for fuel. Adrian Boretsky, TV Republica. A fire ripped through Copenhagen's old stock exchange, one of the Danish capital's most famous landmarks, on Tuesday, engulfing its spire, which collapsed in a scene reminiscent of the 2019 blaze at Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral. The historic building, whose spire was shaped as the tails of 4 dragons intertwined, had been under renovation and clad in scaffolding when the fire broke out.
I can't really explain, it's just a building, but it means so much to us Copenhageners, and every Dane. It's like even my parents, who are from the other part of Denmark, has a little miniature figure of Børsen in the living room. So it's just really sad.
Yeah, the stock exchange is on fire. It was built by Christian IV 400 years ago, and it was the center for trade in Northern Europe for 400 years, and it was a house with 400 people working in there, working for Danish enterprises and companies, and now our home is actually on fire.
All the paintings and all the things of value that was possible to save from the building has been saved. I can't account for how many paintings that are not saved. That's the registration afterwards will show that. Yeah.
Vi meldte os i morges.
We came in this morning when we heard that the stock exchange was on fire because the National Museum has a very large department with a lot of people who can step in to help experts in both the salvage of the valuables but also in the preservation of cultural heritage, and especially those here items that are now being excavated from the stock exchange. Parts of the roof had collapsed and the fire spread to several floors of the building. The fire service said, adding the firefighting operation would continue throughout the night. There were no reports of injuries, police said, and it was not immediately clear what caused the blaze. Thousands of Georgians protested on Monday and lawmakers came to blows as ruling party legislators looked set to advance a bill on foreign agents that has been criticised by Western and domestic critics as Russian-inspired. More than 5,000 prisoners massed outside Georgia's Soviet-built parliament building, demanding the government withdraw the legislation requiring organisations that accept funds from abroad to register as foreign agents or face fines. Georgian critics have labelled the bill the Russian law, comparing it to similar legislation used by the Kremlin to crack down on dissent in Russia. Protesters chanted, "Russians, Russians," at cordons of police securing approaches to the parliament with water cannon deployed nearby.
It's not about the law. It's not about the legal proceedings. It's about the geopolitical choice, right? In that committee hearing, we had this geopolitical discussion, whether Georgia is going to European Union or Georgia is going to Russia.
I hope we push hard enough to get this law out of the parliament. But if they don't do it, I think we have to push enough to get rid of this government.
It's about maintaining independence and also maintaining the laws so we can integrate with the European Union better. So it's complex stuff. It's not one issue.
I'm protesting this Russian law. Second time, first time we thought it was successful, but now we have to do it second time. And this is frustrating because I think that this is really bad for our European future, and we have to fight now or we'll just lose it.
The ruling Georgian Dream Party said this month it would reintroduce a bill 13 months after it was shelved due to protests. Earlier, Georgian television showed Mamuka Dinaradze, leader of Georgian Dream's parliamentary faction and a driving force behind the bill, being punched in the face by opposition Aleko Elishvili while speaking from the dispatch box. The incident prompted a wider brawl, pitting lawmakers against each other, an occasional occurrence in the often raucous parliament. Russia is widely unpopular in Georgia due to Moscow's support for two breakaway regions in the ex-Soviet state, Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Russia defeated Georgia in a short war in 2008. It was a clear Manhattan morning on Tuesday as the second day of Donald Trump's historic hush money trial was set to get underway. Media trucks and a bevy of journalists were scattered about as New York security forces were out in full force. Lawyers are currently trying to choose 12 jurors to consider the guilt or innocence of the first former United States president to face criminal charges. Roughly half of the 96 potential jurors questioned were dismissed after saying they could not impartially judge the polarizing businessman turned politician who is mounting a comeback White House bid while battling 4 separate criminal cases. A New York native who now lives in Florida, Trump was a fixture in the city's tabloid press for decades before he won the presidency as a Republican in 2016. But as a politician, he has never been able to count on the heavily Democratic city for votes. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, a Democrat, has charged Trump with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels shortly before the 2016 election. Daniels says she had a sexual encounter with Trump about a decade beforehand. Trump has pleaded not guilty and denies the encounter took place. To prove a felony, prosecutors must show that Trump covered up the payment to conceal a crime like an illegal campaign contribution. Trump has said the payment was personal. His lawyers have said there could have been reasons beyond his campaign to make the payment, such as sparing himself and his family embarrassment. 5 more prospective jurors were dismissed from Donald Trump's historic hush money trial on Tuesday as lawyers tried to choose the panel of 12 residents of heavily Democratic Manhattan to hear the Republican former U.S. president's criminal case impartially.
It's very difficult for anyone really in this country to not come to this with prior opinions. I think we all have prior opinions about the defendant unless you've been living in a cardboard box since 2014. But personally, I the right to a fair trial in this country is more important to me than anything this particular defendant has done or any feelings about him that I personally have. And then I think in order to uphold that, I was willing to put everything aside as much as I could.
If convicted, Trump would still be able to run for office and serve as president if he won. But a Reuters Ipsos poll found that half of independents and a quarter of his fellow Republicans would not vote for him if he were found guilty.
Just had a policy conference with all the House Republicans. We laid out the plan on how to finally address the supplemental situation. There are precipitating events around the globe that we're all watching very carefully, and we know that the world is watching us to see how we react. We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will. What I presented to the conference tonight is our play call on this. What we'll do is bring to the House floor independent measures. We won't be voting on the Senate supplemental in its current form, but we will vote on each of these measures separately in 4 different pieces. We will vote on the Israel aid, on the aid to Ukraine, on the aid to the Indo-Pacific, and then another measure that has our national security priorities included, and that has some of the things with regard to the loan lease option and the Repo Act and some other sanctions on Iran and other measures that we've been talking about here for quite some time. We'll also allow for an amendment process on the floor so that the regular processes and orders of the House can play out. Every member ultimately will be able to vote their own conscience on all of these matters, and everyone will have an opportunity to weigh in and bring the amendments that they think are suitable. We'll follow the germaneness rules of the House, of course, and the regular rules with regard to amendments. But I think the final product will be something that everybody can take confidence in because they got to vote their district and vote their conscience.
Will you give members 72 hours to review the bill text when it comes out? And then a follow-up: have you spoken to Leader Jeffries about getting Democrat support? Do you think this will get through rules?
Well, I do believe it'll get through rules. I wanted to present the details to my conference first. I will talk with Hakeem Jeffries, my Democrat counterpart in the House, and I suspect that they will respect this process as well, that if we put it on a rule and we let all members vote their conscience, it's equally fair to everybody in the House. And I think that's the way we all hope that the House will run, and that's how we work it. We will honor the 72-hour rule. That probably means that if we get bill text sometime early tomorrow, that's the hope, that's the ambition, then that probably puts us into perhaps Friday evening. We'll have to see how the clock works. But there's some very good ideas, very good conversation. I thought it was very fruitful and productive amongst all the House Republicans tonight, and I suspect and hope that the Democrats will have the same dialogue.